Play a Role is a proud affiliate of Epoch's 3D Magnetic Dungeon Tiles Kickstarter. Epoch is making absolutely incredible magnetic tiles that you can snap together and make a battle map in mere seconds. They've been incredibly kind to my channel, and their product looks absolutely amazing. The Kickstarter ends on February 25th, so if you would like to help out our friends, please go check out the link in the description to support both us and them. Enjoy the video. This is going to be a little bit of a difficult topic to talk about. It's not one that's easy, and it's one that plagues a lot of people's tables. It can really harm a friend group as well as your game. So I'm going to try and handle it delicately, but I'm going to try and be honest about it too. The topic we're talking about today is what to happen when conflict at your table spills over into your friend group. It's a very common thing, and I've seen it happen at my table, other people's tables, and we've all seen the stories about it. D&D is a very personal experience. We open ourselves up to others, and we allow others to feel our emotions. And so when we harm each other through that, it can be hard. So I want to talk about it, I want to address it, and I want to talk about what you can do and how you can handle it both as a player and as a dungeon master to try and create a cohesive place at your table. So let's talk about it. So, first of all, why does conflict happen at the table and then spill over into real life? Well, like I said, D&D is a very personal experience. It's an intimate one if you think about it. A lot of the times we're opening up emotions in ourselves in order to be able to play our characters. And when somebody harms that, we can take it personally, and it can be very difficult to differentiate the two. Recently, I was on a stream, Arcane Adventures, with some of my friends. Really fun. We stream every month. If you want to come watch that, it's a good time. But my character in that series has a conflict with one of the other characters, Owen. We constantly conflict with each other, and both of us refuse to apologize to each other. We'll work with each other, we'll push past it, we'll give apologies without saying them, but we refuse to actually say the words "I'm sorry." It could be very easy for that to flood over into our personal relationship. We are only just now getting to know each other. I haven't known him for very long. So when me and the player conflict in-game as our characters, it could spill over otherwise. But it hasn't. And here's why. It is important to differentiate in a session zero the difference between character conflict and player conflict. And if your players cannot handle that, do not allow that conflict. It is not worth suffering in real life because of something in a game. It's just not. But a lot of the times we've already passed our session zero and those things will happen. Two players will start arguing with each other. One will steal from each other. They start being petty with each other. They start slinging insults, yada, yada, yada.
Stop fighting now. What?
I've actually had a lot of people in my comments ask me to talk about this, and I had a personal, very good friend and player of mine ask me to talk about this specifically, and that's why I'm doing so. It is a common thing to happen. There are ways of handling it.
This is a serious situation.
The first thing that you need to do, and this is hard, so I am sorry, but if that conflict begins spilling over from the game into real life, do not ignore it. The worst thing you could do is sweep it under the rug and let it continue to build up. If I sweep dust under a rug, eventually that rug begins to bulge, and that dust cloud becomes larger and larger. It doesn't disappear. Sweeping it under the rug is not a solution. You can't hope it will go away, because it will keep happening if you let it. So the first thing you need to do is address it in real life. Don't confront the person. Don't stop the game unless you think that's really necessary, but pull them aside after the game and say, hey, I noticed some tension. I really don't want to have that fight with you. I don't want to have problems. Can we make sure that we keep this in the game? What do I need to do? And what is it that upset you and me so that we can get through this? I know that is hard. It is very difficult to conflict somebody. I personally hate conflict. I will do almost anything to avoid it. But the point is, avoiding it is not going to cause you to escape it. It will only mean it will get bigger as it chases you. And eventually it will tear everything apart. It will tear your game apart, and it can tear your friendship apart if you let it.
I don't want you stressing out about any of this.
So please, when conflict begins to rise, talk with the person. The other thing that you need to do is, if your characters are constantly conflicting in game, I think it's important to resolve that. Yes, it can be fun and it can be an ongoing joke, but eventually the characters probably need to come to a conclusion. Otherwise, it will more than likely just keep building. And that can be a real problem. I've seen it happen in my game where two of the characters really didn't like the rest of the people at the party, and there was a constant back and forth bickering, and eventually it got pretty harmful. It is important to talk with everybody and figure out how they can eventually come to that resolution. Going back to the character Owen in Arcane Adventures, I fully intend on him and my character Vix eventually being able to make up. I expect eventually they'll grow and mature into that. But for now, it's fun to have them to have that back and forth. It's a good time. We enjoy it. But it eventually becomes stale and eventually becomes hurtful.
I've had enough of this constant bickering.
The thing is, conflict is natural. It's part of human connection and it's part of the game. It's fun to have, and without conflict, the game wouldn't be that fun. But if you let it keep growing without addressing it, same as it happens outside of the game, it will eventually just keep growing until it becomes a problem. PvP happens, which could be fun if your party's into it, but a lot of parties are not. They don't want to fight each other, and so it does not become a good time. Addressing it is the largest thing. Now, if you are a player and you're the one having the conflict, you have to address it. But if you see other people having it, it can be difficult to address it because, well, you're not them. You can't make them go talk about it, and they might not be on that level of maturity. As a dungeon master, if I see that conflict happening out of game, I have done before where I have stopped the game and made sure that people are okay. And a lot of the times that's all it's needed. They just need to be able to pull out and realize, whoa, affecting more than what's in the game right now. And that's a problem. And they'll be able to address it very quickly, say, no, we're good, okay. And they'll usually talk about it afterwards. But if you are another player seeing this happen, I would talk with your dungeon master and with the other players. Don't be intrusive, don't get into their business, that's not going to be helpful. But say, hey, I've noticed this issue and I really don't want this to cause a problem between you guys and the rest of the group. Is there anything I can do to help? Should we talk about this? Addressing it is the biggest problem. It's the hardest thing to do, but it is the most effective way of handling it. Don't handle it in game. Never do it. As a dungeon master, don't try and shove those two characters together and just make them solve it. Or as a player, don't try and just confront the person and make them solve it so that you don't have to deal with this conflict out of game anymore. It's not going to work because it is through proxy. You have the characters having the issue and you're trying to solve an outside thing through characters, and it will get muddled. It's a lot like trying to talk through a pane of glass. Talking through one pane of glass through somebody else, it's not going to be much of a problem. But if you keep putting those panes of glass there, say 2 or 3, representing the characters in the game, that is going to get muffled and muddled and you're not going to be able to understand each other. Addressing it in game is one of the worst things you can do until you've addressed it outside of the game. Now, I know this advice is hard and many people don't like it, and it's why these stories are so common. People don't want to conflict with each other, but you have to in order to prevent the conflict from growing any larger. It can really be a harmful thing at the table, and it can ruin your game and your friendships, and it's just not worth it. It is not worth playing D&D and ruining a friendship or relationship you have with somebody else because you wanted to have that conflict in game. So address it, converse with each other, communicate with your dungeon master, and note that most issues that happen at a table are solved through communication. Communication is a huge part of what makes us human, and we've got to keep it up if we want to create a good tabletop community. So try that out. Go out into the world, make it your own, you beautiful bastards. Don't forget to have a great day, and this is a very important video where you play your role. Thank you. A huge shout out to all those divine bastards over on our Patreon that helped make this video happen. I'd also like to take an additional very personal thank you to BKBW, Diet Blue, Duplicolor, Malcadil, I hope I pronounced that right, Sassy Cat Productions, Sorit, Supreme Court, Tin Eye, and Void Mystic. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without our patrons, and we are very thankful for your continued support. You guys are the absolute best, and I will never take your support for granted.